Film is closer to me in being divinely guided through the human imagination as conduit for tapping into freedom of thought, denied in ancient holy scriptures when read literally through a dogmatic lens from a fanatical mind. This is why I dream of finding a new tribe that transforms fanaticism, meeting in darkness under the flicker of a relatively new light when seen through the backdrop of the history of our species, cathedrals of the human spirit, shrines of possibility, temples of light, our movie theaters have provided me with more spiritual inspiration and revelation about the true nature of reality than I've ever experienced in a religious setting. With a canon spanning hundreds of thousands of films, while growing larger exponentially every year, there is the very common experience of running into a movie that speaks to you on a personal level, as if it was made with you in mind, in a way not possible with the same frequency in religious scriptures, where the stories are limited and haven't changed for thousands of years. One such film I would like to talk about and analyze, because it speaks to me on a personal level concerning my Lyme battle, more than I've ever experienced with any other movie, is the horror film released on Netflix in 2019 called Eli. I randomly found its trailer online, which captured my curiosity, because the name of this film is also my name, and I just could not believe this trailer had these scenes that were basically commentary on what I've been experiencing in my life and in my 28-year battle with Lyme disease. And I just couldn't believe how much this movie was speaking to me. And so I kind of went through it on Netflix, and I didn't watch it all because it's a horror movie and I'm not into that genre. But there was enough from particular scenes that spoke to me about the horror story of the Lyme disease I've been enduring for over 28 years that I feel like I have to analyze this film and connect the dots as to why I see myself so much in this movie. Obviously, part of it is because of I having the same name as the lead character, but not only that, there's these strange coincidences about our two stories that intersect. So that's why I need to talk about them. In the first scene, a kid full of life is running through the grass, and he comes upon his family in their picnic, and he experiences a kind of convulsion and coughing, and he can't get enough air, and he falls to the ground and starts feeling this burning sensation, and it's just torture. It's like he's going through hell, and he wants help. He's screaming for help, but no one is helping him. And there's separation between himself and his family because of this illness, which is exactly what I feel this disease has created with mine. And then he wakes up from this nightmare in the same way I wish I could with mine. I kind of see this kid in the beginning scene as symbolic for every child who goes through life and it experiences a no-win situation that can come to us when we have no idea what to do. And in my case with Lyme disease, it's kind of like a Kobayashi Maru no-win scenario I haven't figured out how to beat. The Kobayashi Maru is a term coined in Star Trek, referring to a test given Starfleet officers and Starfleet captains to see how they will react in a no-win situation. So that's kind of how I feel my life is going. There's a no-win situation with Lyme, and I'm like this kid falling down. My body's breaking apart, and literally I feel like I'm burning up, preventing me from building a life, all while there's this literally burning sensation that just keeps getting worse in my body. And so just from the beginning of this movie, I was like, wow, this is like my story in many ways. And then in this scene, the stepfather is talking to his wife's son, and he says that we needed to tighten our belts to get the doctor.
But we did need to tighten our belts to get you to this doctor, pal.
I know. Well, she's gonna be worth every penny. She's a miracle worker, right?
And the mom says, well, she's going to be worth every penny because she's a miracle worker. This scene spoke to me about my Lyme battle because so many times my parents have spent thousands of dollars trying to get me doctors, trying to get me miracle workers, trying to get me some kind of solution to this nightmare. And it has just gone nowhere, and I feel bad about that. I feel bad about being a failure in my parents' eyes of not being able to get better. and not being able to make use of the tremendous costs this illness they've had to bear. So yeah, this is what this scene spoke to me about the strongest. This next scene, Eli, the character, meets the new medical personnel that are going to help him recover, and the doctor's name is Dr. Horn. So he shakes her hand and looks like he trusts her.
Hello, Eli. I'm Dr. Horn.
Hello?
Rose?
This might be the solution he's looking for, and that's kind of how I've gone into meeting these new doctors throughout my Lyme battle. At the very beginning, I thought, maybe this was going to be the miracle worker. Maybe this is going to be the doctor that helps me find a breakthrough. And every time it's been a disappointment. Every time I've just had my hopes dashed. And oftentimes I've left these doctors and alternative treatments feeling worse than when I got there. And now granted, none of my doctors have been a horror story at the level of this movie. But symbolically, I can resonate with what this kid is going through and going into a new place with new hopes that go nowhere. And for me, it's just been one doctor after another. I go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and it doesn't go anywhere. And in this next scene, we see this kid going through a procedure, and we see all this medical equipment for his treatments. And I've been through this so many times with antibiotics and intravenous antibiotics and treatments that were disturbing, because you don't want to go through all this stuff that they want to put you through, but you're willing to suffer and do it for the hope that it's going to work.
Why are you taking my picture?
Do you know what happened to the boy who asked so many questions?
You got answers?
And here he's skeptical, and he wants to find out what they're doing, and he wants to understand things. Here the doctor straps him in, ready to begin the first procedure, and she talks a little bit about his illness, and it reminded me about what I've faced with Lyme disease. His story started 4 years ago, but for me, it started over 28 years ago. And I was like this kid at the beginning of my early treatments, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, and the doctors were telling me what their take was concerning what was happening in my body.
Because what is an autoimmune syndrome at its core? It's the body fighting itself, right?
So she says here, it's his body fighting itself, an autoimmune disorder, which is what Lyme disease is. The doctors told me the same thing too, that in my body, spirochete bacteria cloaks its malice, infiltrating my immune system, turning it against itself into something like a civil war. Yeah, so it's disturbing to hear this from doctors that were telling me that if I don't figure out how to stop the war, if I don't figure out how to beat Lyme disease, it will eventually destroy and eventually eat up my brain, eventually kill me, basically. So that's basically what this kid faces too. If he can't figure out how to end this civil war in his body, it will destroy him.
So I'm going to take this specially modified virus and inject it into the marrow. This virus is going to repair that gene and reset your entire immune system. Poof. It's like a magic trick, right?
This is kind of what doctors told me too, but with a different modality, that the antibiotics would go in and destroy the bad bacteria. But they also said it would destroy the good bacteria, and that's what really messed up my digestion and body's balance. So basically, they thought it was going to be some kind of magic trick. The spirochetes would lose, and I would get my life back. And in this next scene, we kind of see the after effects of this treatment on Eli.
Dr. Horn? Dr. Horn, let me go.
Can't do that, Eli.
Dr. Horn, it burns.
That's the medication.
No, it really burns.
That means it's working.
So this is obviously way more dramatic than what I've experienced, but on one level, it expresses symbolically what I've endured, in that their treatments just made things worse and made me feel worse, and they're like saying the same thing in this film. That's because the medication is working. So yeah, this scene really resonated with me. And then in this next one, he wakes up and he's got some kind of intravenous thing in his arms. And that's kind of what I experienced so many times with so many different treatments: intravenous antibiotics, intravenous cocktails of different mixtures of medications that they gave me, that I had to put in my body through intravenous means. In this next scene, the family is praying. It's very familiar to me because I've been raised around and with Christians who are always saying prayers around me, leading with prayer and always ending in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And I've always felt inadequate because it always reminds me of how it's been used by religious extremists in past traumatic experiences, implying that they have God's blessing and his ear. But I don't, because I haven't been born again by their standards, and I'm disconnected from the divine while I'm having my will overrun. Their paradigm is put out there as if it's the one and only truth, and they're not asking my input that could change their cognitive dissonance or their prayer. And they're not saying, well, what do you think? What do you believe? Let's have a debate. It's always their beliefs, what they believe. And this scene resonated with me because I've experienced this so much in my life. I don't believe what they believe. And is that such a bad thing? I mean, sometimes they do think it's a bad thing and think I'm anti-Christian, when I'm not. I'm just anti-Christian extremist. I'm anti the belief that Jesus is the only way and that everyone else is damned to hell that believe otherwise. I think that my will matters too, and that my perspective matters too. My prayers will be different than theirs, and that's what this scene made me think about. In the scene with his breath on the window, he writes his name Eli, and then some unseen force erases the E and changes his name to Lie. And some commentary and analysis I found on YouTube posits that these ghosts are communicating that he's being lied to, and all these authority figures in his life are lying to him. And this kind of speaks to me too about the religious extremism that took hold in my family many years ago that has told so many lies. And I've experienced these lies, like my grandfather telling me that my Lyme was caused by not believing in the Bible, and other family members spreading just horrendous lies that I'm a grandchild of a Satanist and child of a willing accomplice to satanic torture, and thus not part of their family for not believing their story. And the only reason this past family trauma is flaring up in my life is because these absurd lies are also being projected outward into our national family, with Trump retweeting people's voices that spread more lies, like John Voight.
This is now our greatest fight since the Civil War. The battle of righteousness versus Satan. Yes, Satan. Because these leftists are evil.
And another video from a GOP politician that he retweeted.
Where I've come to the conclusion that the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat.
Trump constantly retweeted people demonizing the left side over the right, that the left is sinister, that the left is evil, and I feel like it's all just a pack of lies. There's just so many lies in our national family. It eats me up, and I feel like my illness is kind of like a metaphor for the civil war that's going on in our national body and in my own body. It's just lie after lie, and Trump is the king of these lies. The other day he went on his Truth social media and started re-truthing. It's a good way to package his lies as truth. So he retruthed all this content from QAnon supporters and QAnon sources who basically spread a bunch of conspiracy theories and horrifying lies about the globalist left, evil progressives who are drinking the blood of sacrificed babies. It's just like the most horrifying lies you can imagine. And the former president of the United States is just spreading this garbage. So many lies. So this really resonated with me, and the reason behind why I've never trusted religious extremists and view their agenda with deep suspicion. And I created an entire screenplay about what I imagine they do if allowed to seize the controls of the government, to seek revenge and demonize their opposition in the same way Trump seeks to do the same to us. This scene resonated with me too. So here's the stepfather telling the mother to let Dr. Horn do her job.
Maybe you could lower the dosage or something.
I mean, if he's seeing things, I mean.
We put everything on the line for them.
I know.
Everything.
He was terrified, Paul.
Let her do her job.
I'm not going to sugarcoat this. What we're doing here is very hard on Eli's body. And some of the symptoms from his condition are bound to flare up. Look, we need to stay the course of the medication, especially with procedure 2.
Why? What do you mean?
Eli's going to get worse before he gets better.
Oh my gosh. I have heard this particular line so many times. Eli is going to get worse before he gets better. And although my doctors believed it, now it rings more like a lie, because I didn't get better, but I did get worse many times from over 17 years of antibiotic use off and on. And I'm still getting worse, but I'm not getting better. That's why this scene really resonates with me, because I've heard it so many times.
I think she's making me sicker.
Oh, she's not, Eli.
And this scene resonated with me too. This conversation between his parents.
It's the medication.
I know what I saw, Mom, and it's not the medication. And if it was, then why do I feel worse?
Because it's working. The good cells are fighting the bad stuff. You're bound to feel weak.
So yeah, you're feeling worse because it's working. I've heard that so many times. It's just so cliche from what I've experienced.
I want to leave.
You want to leave? Okay. Let's go. Come on. Doctor says you're getting better. You want to leave and stay sick forever, or do you want to stay here and get better? What's it going to be?
Stay and get better.
This is what I've endured in my Lyme treatment. Doctors are saying you're getting better. Do you want to get off the antibiotics when they're doing their job? And this is the pressure that was keeping me locked into this horrible treatment that was just making me feel worse. And it was a horrible experience, and this scene really speaks to me about that. And this scene, Eli gets out of the toppled over closet, thrown over by ghosts, and it has his name scrawled into it, merging with lie, 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 lie. And again, just speaking to me about how lies try to knock us all down, to terrorize us, dominate our lives, and are running rampant in our international family. This scene, he's talking to his friend outside the glass.
Did I get you in trouble? You look terrible.
I feel terrible too.
What happened?
If I tell you, you have to promise not to laugh.
Just spill it.
I think this house is haunted. I need to get out of here.
So get your hazmat and go.
I can't. I wouldn't survive outside without my parents.
So this resonated with me because I feel like I need to escape this part of my life that's not working. And she's like, just get up and go. And that's what I tried to do 2 times, trying to move to California. But I'm still dependent on my parents, and I won't survive without them unless I find a breakthrough and beat this illness. So I feel like in many ways that I'm like this kid Eli, and I don't know how to survive without the help of family, because this illness makes me half a human, taking my power away. This scene spoke to me as well. Although it's like way over the top, I've never experienced ghosts or anything like that, but I feel it kind of is symbolic for these forces beyond my control, just toying with me, like the forces beyond his control, just toying with him, manipulating him, pulling him along the ground, and he can't escape, and that's kind of what my illness has been like. And I don't know how to escape these forces, but strangely we find out these forces are trying to help him in this story. They're trying to take him out of the building, to leave the premise. This made me contemplate whether the forces toying with me were actually benevolent, trying to help me, not harm. But it's hard to consider this, especially when these forces are often creating hell in my body and mind, while simultaneously feeding the narrative of religious fanatics that are like Dr. Horn, who would view such symptoms in my body as manifestations and evidence my soul belonged to Satan. And some of these symptoms are so dark and disturbing at the time, I wasn't able to expose them to others, holding them up in the light of day. But now that I'm stronger and feel more like I can stand up to the condemning voices from extremists, if ever they should attack me again, I'm empowered to share my account of being toyed with by these forces. They began at the darkest moments of my illness, in the form of violent thoughts exploding from my consciousness. I reasoned that if I was powerless to control such thoughts from entering my mind, would it be possible I could lose control of my actions, acting on them like a puppet? Thankfully, the answer was no, and I have never lost control of myself. And most recently, I have experienced more of these forces beyond my control in the form of a negative frequency, projecting the most graphic and vile images of death and decay into my consciousness, in a non-stop flood of horrifying images worse than the most vile images of a horror movie. This and other experiences like it, such as hateful and condemning voices speaking against me with more lies, is just the kind of thing fanatics would zero in on as proof Satan is real and infecting me. But that doesn't add up, because these forces seem to be trying to draw me into this dualistic paradigm that would actually only serve the narrative and worldview of fanatics, while also emulating the same spirit, compelling them and their President Trump to spread lies just as damaging. They would hear me describe these symptoms and say it is proof of their greatest enemy, without considering other possibilities more closely aligned to a universe that makes the most sense. Might it be in the best interests of whatever is generating these psychic manifestations in my mind and in the minds of others to keep humankind divided and fighting itself in a non-stop civil war, split over lines of an atheist and theist worldview, trying to perpetuate the same demonization, empowering fanatics with their endless holy wars? I have watched episodes of Star Trek with a similar premise. An alien entity is manipulating the population of a world, keeping them ensnared in the endless hell of superstition, fear, and violence run amok, using it to divide and conquer, keeping them weak.
You think you know everything, Albion, but you do not even know what you are. The species does not deserve a second chance. Great balance is the only way to ensure you do not destroy everything in your path.
It's a great balance.
The Baul will use their technological advantage to lock the Kelpians into subservience, allowing them to live while eliminating the threat they posed.
And that's why the Baul are afraid.
Rather than let them evolve, the Baul are committing genocide?
Discovery will stop them.
It's entirely possible our world is being manipulated in the same way by an advanced alien species with sinister intent. This is why this illness has been so traumatic for me. I feel trapped in this negative frequency, projecting violence in my mind, trying to make me believe a dogmatic religious lie about our world, with the story that ends in a nightmare before paradise is possible. At the same time, I believe in the unseen and the power of possibility to transcend negative stories leading to nightmares, replacing them with a beautiful dream. The civil war inside me is about fighting against a disease that feeds fuel to the fire of religious fanatics and even empowers more of their lies, convinced we all live in a doomed world, ending in a nightmare with destruction for the enemies of their God. Here, Eli has another reaction.
I know about Perry.
Who's Perry?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Lie.
Who's Perry?
Lie! You're a liar! Someone tell me what's actually going on!
So yeah, this scene really spoke to me because there's these people in his life that are just spreading lies. Just like there's people in our national family like Trump and all his enablers. And even some Democrats are misleading too, donating to the campaigns of extremists with the goal that it will help elect progressives on their side. And there's just so many lies. And when you get enraged at the lies, one side will be like, breathe, relax, let's calm down, and ignore what's going on with a wish, while trying to keep us all playing the same game their opposition is using to take everyone for a ride.
I am right here. Look at me, I'm right here. Okay, breathe, breathe. Let's make our wish.
I don't want to make a fucking wish! Mom?
And he's like, I don't want to ignore what's going on. And this just speaks to me. Like, when do we take action against all this craziness going on and all these lies compelling us to change the system and to change this absurdity before it destroys the best within us? Then he collapses and wakes up in bed, and he's just in this very depressed state, and he has this IV stuck in his arm. And that really spoke to me, because I feel like this is what I've been enduring for over 28 years, and nothing has changed. They still just want to pump me with more antibiotics and antidepressants. And this scene here spoke to me too.
I'm just saying that I can't believe that he actually tried to leave.
The last treatment didn't go as I'd hoped. Eli's brain is waging a war against the serum. That's why he's feeling so sick and delusional. I'm going to administer diazepam to enable him to rest until dawn, and then we'll begin the final procedure.
And this scene here spoke to me too. I wonder what the end game of this illness is. Are they going to be treating me with this kind of mentality? You know he's delusional now because he won't take our antibiotics or our antidepressants that we prescribed. I'm not talking about my family here. I'm talking about religious extremists, authority figures who may try to take over and dominate their opposition with lies if Trump gets a revenge term as president. And it doesn't matter that I oppose him. If I get so bad I can't take care of myself anymore and I can't function, it's always kind of a fear in the back of my mind. So this scene resonated with me because it's like, there's only suffering out there, and then the mom says, but there's only suffering in here too. But then the doctor spreads a new lie, but in here there's still a chance.
Out there, there's nothing but suffering.
There's only suffering for him in here.
In here, there's still a chance.
Is there? I need to know that you can save him.
With you by my side, I can, Rose.
So in this scene, he sneaks into the doctor's office and finds out the truth about her, that she's a Catholic nun, and all her nurses are Catholic nuns too. So it's like basically they're waging holy war against Eli. So yeah, this scene resonates with me because I have been to some doctor's offices with religious iconography. One time coming to mind at a hospital in New Haven, where a massive crucifix hung on the wall where I was getting a tilt table test. Then there was the counselor in Colorado who prayed over me that I'd be free of all satanic influences when he found out I had a friend who was a student of Jiddu Krishnamurti. And there was the doctor in Rhode Island I saw about the Lyme battle who tried to evangelize with me a fundamentalist Jesus video and DVD when he found out about my idea to start a fellowship of film geared to unite the world peacefully. And the most recent memory of this development came in Carlsbad, California, under a referral from my neurologist. And this doctor in Carlsbad had religious iconography covering his walls everywhere, and it creeped me out. The fear is that they might believe this holy war nonsense more than they believe in science. And I discovered that this doctor in Carlsbad was borderline holy warrior. Just from talking to him, I found out that he believed that Lyme disease was a conspiracy. It was created in a lab, and just like COVID. And some of the information he got about these conspiracies were from the Epoch Times, which is a big pro-Trump news media company. And when I said the climate crisis is one of the greatest threats to human civilization, which is through scientific documentation of what's happening on our planet, he basically told me, yeah, this isn't going to work out. It was just really disturbing to see how he had religious iconography all over his office and was a big Trump supporter, and it just creeped me out. And I worry that I'm going to come on under the control of some doctor like this who isn't as blatant. I saw the warning signs in the Carlsbad doctor's walls in his office, but what if I came upon some other new doctor like Dr. Horn in this movie who hides all this nonsense and basically hides their belief in the same garbage my grandfather tried to make me believe, that the reason why I have Lyme is because I don't believe the Bible. I don't believe this religious holy warrior nonsense. So yeah, this movie is really speaking to me in these scenes. Eli comes across this doorway in the doctor's office that leads him to a kind of basement chamber of this clinic. And he finds all this religious iconography down there, some kind of crucifix and ritual altar. Then he has this allergic reaction where he thinks he's going to die, but he actually survives and finds out that he was never going to die and this illness couldn't kill him, and it was all just a lie.
I can breathe. I can breathe. I can breathe. Mom! Mom, Dad, I'm not sick! I can breathe!
And so this scene resonated with me because it made me want to contemplate the possibility that Lyme disease is all a lie.
Why did you tell me I was gonna die?
I've been told that Lyme disease infiltrates your body's immune system, that these spirochetes are cloaking their malice and infiltrating your healthy cells, turning your immune system against itself, kind of like religious extremists masking their malice while infiltrating our national body to turn America against itself. I've also been told that Lyme is sexually transmittable, that it's going to destroy my brain, that it's basically going to destroy my life and kill me unless I beat it first. I want to believe it is a lie rather than believe this is all true and this illness is corrupting me, that it's going to destroy me and it's going to destroy my brain. I can't work now, but according to doctors, it will make it so I can't even function. So yeah, I would like to believe Lyme disease is all a big lie.
Rose?
So his mom hears him and she goes back down.
I know he's awake, but we're almost ready.
I need to see him.
I wish you wouldn't. If we're just proceeding,
I'm not asking. Eli? Eli, can
And
you
he's
hear me?
faking that he's incapacitated.
I'm sorry I lied to you.
He falls over, pretending that he loses consciousness, and then he hits his mom in the head with the crucifix. And runs upstairs to escape, and the doctor and his stepdad try to stop him, but he gets away, and he goes to the room with the glass windows and sees his friend outside. And she basically tells him not to fear them and that he can handle it. And this next scene really resonated with me because the mom picks up the crucifix after having it symbolically knock some sense into her, and she realizes it's a stealth dagger. The top part pulls out to reveal a huge blade, and this is the perfect symbolism for the shadow side cast by Christianity.
The cross was central to the way I saw the world. It was like a sighting device, even, through which I looked. And then it changed. I began to see that this cross throws a shadow.
There's a good side and a shadow side, and the shadow side provokes religious fanatics to use Christianity like a knife, weaponizing religion. And it's so clear throughout history and in my own experience that this has happened time and again. The Roman emperors commandeering the cross as a symbol for war, and it's just happened so often. This is something not only in Christianity's past, but Islam's too. Using their scripture as tool to justify war as means of salvation through holy war, to save their enemy's soul by killing them.
Sam.
I can save his soul.
No, what are you doing? She's gonna kill him! No! 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 No!
the things people do in the name of God. Every religious person has to take responsibility for the way in which their tradition encourages intolerance, suspicion, hatred of the other. We have some very clear reckoning with history to do.
This is the same thing the conquistadors did to some Native Americans. They claimed to save their souls if they wouldn't convert to Christianity by burning them alive like witches. This misuse of religion is as ancient in both Christianity and Islam, attracting both evil and benevolence. There's two sides. There's the Martin Luther Kings and the Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khans, who used Christianity and Islam as a tool for good, to bring justice and enlightenment to others, and peace and love. And others, such as Osama bin Laden and George W. Bush, who used them as weapons to kill and escalate war. Then the mother opens up the altar, which turns out to be a sarcophagus containing the bodies of the previous children with the same illness of Eli, that were treated and then ritualistically murdered by Dr. Horn. I couldn't help but see this symbolically and think about my Lyme battle. Although I don't face some sinister doctor about to murder me in a ritualistic, perverse religious ceremony, I do face the very real danger of having this disease finish killing off the best of what's left inside me, turning me into a corpse, unable to escape this illness, which has already locked me into a 20-year stasis of being unable to grow as a human being and build a life, which was stolen from me before I was an adult by Lyme turning into my own personal hell. This last scene, they're performing some kind of religious ritual and throwing holy water on Eli, which acts like acid, burning him more. And then Dr. Horn raises the dagger to stab him, but she's stopped by his psychic kinetic powers. And then he goes on a killing spree, murdering everyone that tried to kill him. And they find out something quite unexpected, that Eli is the real son of Satan. This scene is just so absurd. Rather than end the movie showing a child victimized by religious fanatics, escaping their evil delusions on his own power, the movie ends by creating sympathy for the Christian extremists, that perhaps their twisted worldview is true and that they were justified in trying to preemptively murder the son of Satan before his inhuman powers were discovered, to murder them first, and help his father in a sinister plot of opposing Christ's salvation for humankind to their collective damnation. This ending had the exact opposite effect in compelling the contemplation of such absurd scenarios, because it reminded me instead about how unquestioningly religious extremists will believe in so much nonsense, and they will do things like cheer on Trump's retweet of John Voight's video, in which he compares the battle with Satan to that of the fight against the evil left. It's this demonization of those who oppose your vision of God that has been the driving force behind how this mythology of Satan has been created. Someone who opposes God and opposes Jesus, seeking only evil. And this psychology describes perfectly what I've dealt with in certain religious fanatics, like most recently at Balboa Park, where one of 3 missionaries called my vision of world peace the Antichrist. They're willing to associate me with Satan just for not believing what they believe and having a vision contrary to what their Holy Bible tells them, that the world will fail in a nightmare for the unbelievers, but heaven for the fanatics. And they're over eager to demonize me for that, associating me with their greatest enemy. And this movie kind of takes it to an absurd level, because there's nobody who has psychic kinetic powers like the main character Eli, and I don't even believe in Satan. What this film speaks to me most about is the willingness of religious extremists to demonize their opposition, and that has translated in the past to killing them through torture, whether on the battlefield through holy wars, or facilitating this transition from its start in the ritualistic political altar of character assassination sanctioned by their God. And the atheists in their view are evil and tools of Satan because they don't believe in God or his truth, where their interpretation of scripture serves the same function as Trump's social media packaging lies as retruths. Although this movie had an absurd ending and completely played into a storyline that's yet another lie. At the same time, it revealed something at another level that has some deep insight. That extremists aren't opposed by Satan, they're just opposed by other people against the evil they're manifesting in themselves by demonizing their opponents. Most of us know this is going to create war, this is going to create violence, it's going to create opposition, it's going to create resistance. If someone tries to stab you with their holy dagger, you're going to try to stop them by trying to push them away and even push it into their own chest to kill them to save yourself. That's not the work of Satan's child. That's just what happens naturally, a natural reaction that humans undergo when they feel like their lives are threatened. There are rare instances in people who have transcended this. They would rather turn the other cheek and let their opponents kill them and then use their martyr status to transform the situation. But for the vast majority of people, they're going to fight back. They're going to stop the dagger from being plunged in their own chest and even try to redirect it to instead be plunged into their opponent. Even if some religious fear it's the atheists with the satanic altars in their basements, and on the other side, some atheists fear it's the religious who have murder altars in their basements. What's not clear is how to end these fears. They're often born out of an awareness that history is capable of repeating itself, and the worst part of our humanity can return to inflict torture on those who think different. So in order to put a stop to this endless loop, let's ensure our government is never taken over by extremists who want to legalize the kind of demonization, persecution, and torture that we have seen in the darkest chapters of human history. But the feeling of powerlessness to make change in the face of this illness, inside and outside, seems to be only growing in strength. I don't know where to go or what to do to find healing. I thought I'd find it in California, but the problem I face there, my illness makes me feel worthless and incapable of creating the value needed to attract help I need. It's a catch-22. I don't know how to escape. You need to be healthy and in demand, helping in a community or by working in a job to feel self-worth and afford the costs of being sick, which make you unable to work. Be part of a community or afford the health insurance, attracting the smartest doctors who can find a cure. I've already tried to communicate to my friends, family, and the world that I'm in desperate need of help that I can't find. The nightmare happening in America mirrors the nightmare happening in my body. Like the Avalon, it feels like a cascade of mission-critical failures is about to crash my life to pieces and end my journey on Earth. Because of this, I've been sailing through my days in a hibernation, refusing to allow my painful circumstances punish me for something I haven't been able to control or fix. Things are getting very bleak. I don't know how much longer my immune system can compensate for the baffling breakdown going on inside my body. As of yet, there is nothing that has vented the reactor of my exploding immune system, which feels like a meltdown in progress. It's enough to make me feel like smashing my head in frustration and breaking down until someone helps me, because this illness makes about as much sense as the one infecting us. I don't want to be in a Twilight Zone episode any longer. And the voice crying loudest inside myself to be heard continues to feel ignored. The people my messages have reached either don't know how to connect me with this help or don't see me as valuable enough to be worthy of it. Because I can't figure out how to give myself the value I need to defeat this nightmare, I would never want to have kids of my own who I wouldn't even know how to help if they were ever in the same predicament as me. Right now, I have no idea how to get back to California, my new home, when I'm feeling so low and helpless. Each new day making me feel worthless the longer I go without finding a cure or any breakthrough that ends this hell inside my body and in our national body. And I don't want to stay in New England where I caught this illness in the first place and continue to feel more and more useless to my friends and family here because of it, and more out of place because I don't feel like I belong. And as I say this, my powerlessness just feeds the narrative of the extremists that God is punishing me for rejecting the fanatical interpretation of their holy scriptures. For whatever reason, I'm in this horrible situation. I will never give up seeking to transcend this torture and transform this illness into a tool for converting extremists to the beauty and potentials of science and humanism, while transcending the holy wars of earth with a universal fellowship capable of facilitating unification of humankind that can turn our collective hell of disease and infighting into something closer to health and heavenly peace. Unlike the ending of this movie, I seek to transcend its character Eli, not only by changing my name to something that represents me, that's not biblical, but also by transcending this illness without the help of a fictional psychokinetic father of evil. Extremists are not only convinced exist, but is what they think I'm attracting by believing a better future is possible than their revelation Armageddon. And if they seek my demise because I think different, I refuse to pay back their evil with more of it. I seek instead to transcend their dualistic worldview by transforming their consciousness with a better alternative. We live in a universe of infinite possibility where good doesn't require evil or hell-bound damned needed for the heaven-bound saved to prevail, but that we can all prevail together with a shift into higher consciousness as a global civilization, living in peace and prosperity. Even though there are hidden forces continuing to toy with me that I'm completely blind to figuring out how to transcend, I refuse to concede to their mystery. There must be those in our world that can help me understand, navigate, and transcend them, and finally be free of this illness. I will never give up my search for this elixir for as long as I live, and I will never give up my dream that rather than convert me, I will succeed in converting extremists to join me in a fellowship that transcends their religion for temples of light, spread across every nation of earth, and to also show them that in true Christianity, identity is fluid, not rigid. So that means it's possible to connect with and become part of all the other religions and other identities in a relationship of interconnection and interdependence, where I can call myself with confidence a Muslim, hippie, pagan, yin-yang, atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Jew, Baha'i, Taoist, Christian, Buddhist, Shinto, Sikh, possibilian, world citizen, human being, and not have to worry about being attacked by an extremist and told that I'm insulting their religion, the one and only truth.